is what record labels do that you don't even know about, that they benefit like way the hell down the road. People get confused by this. Copyright registrations are different than everything else I've talked about. You know, we sold $9 million of catalog last year alone, and we weren't even doing it that much, to be honest.
So I made a marching band arrangement of Kendrick's Not Like Us, not made for profit, just to do it. If someone wants the parts, can I give it to them, or do I need to get permission first?
You did your own rendition, you did a cover, and so you're totally fine to do a cover version, but we're not talking about just making an audio version and then putting that on music platforms, which is okie dokie, right? What you're doing is now, you said, I want to put it into parts and to give it to. So, you know, what does that mean? Are we doing stems? Are we recording something? Right? So I would need a little more context into that. But generally speaking,
let's say
you do stems. At least, what's that?
Let's say it's stems. Let's say he's given the drum parts to someone else.
You need to keep in mind that if you're making the thing and you start to put it into parts and pieces, that's where it starts to not become a cover song. So under copyright law, the good news is that you can do cover songs, but you got to make sure it still is the cover song. It's the same melody. It's the same lyrics. Okay. As soon as you're like, oh, KRYSTLE, I did a cover song, but I changed to the chorus, or I changed, and we've heard this a lot, that I changed the second verse. So the second verse, totally fresh.
They just
want well, it's no longer a cover. So whereas the law is like, hey, we want you to be able to do cover songs and you're okay. There's mechanical licenses in place from the DSP, so digital service provider and all that. As soon as you put it into pieces, that's where you start to get into trouble. So I would need more context, a little bit of this as far as like how you're doing it and all that stuff, but just keep that in mind, and then keep it in mind for who you give it to and what they do with it.
What web store content would you suggest to complement music as far as direct to consumer besides traditional merch, artwork, you know, whatever? So what do you think about that?
You have to figure out what your audience wants. So for me, one of the things that we found people liked a lot were posters. And, you know, for us, on the time, effort, expense to kind of make the product and then sell the product, what had, you know, a pretty good, you know, dividend in it, posters did really well. I could sign them. They're fun. We could do tons of stuff. What do your fans want? That's what we need to make sure that we're doing.
For sure. Like posters, song lyrics are really good. Like handwritten lyrics are really good. Whatever, like if you have a unique skill, like let's say you were really good at making coasters, you know what I mean? Like for cups and stuff.
For those of you, you know, out there with like fun clothing things.
You used to do that a lot.
Like
with art. Like you would she used to sell paintings and stuff at show where people would buy them online and such. So
and then I became a lawyer. You kidding me?
But there's all that, and I mean, just anything. We made a video on the channel recently called 35 Ways to Make Money with Your Music, and it just shows all the kind of different ways and different services and stuff that you can use and offer to your, you know, your fan base and stuff. It could be custom stuff. It could be exclusive stuff. It just really depends on what your brand, like if I knew what your brand was more of like the stuff that you're into, I could see it being, I could probably help you out a little bit more with that. But yeah, but just get started on stuff. If the session's done, musician paid, do I need an agreement for physical CD release? I know I need for streaming.
Yeah. So Paul, you're, we talk about the mechanical license. The mechanical license under copyright law now is required by the digital service providers, Spotify, Amazon, all that. For the streaming portion, if you're making your music available on CDs or vinyls, you, the artist, has to go and actually get a mechanical license still for those things, right? And so you want to go to like easy song licensing. It's not expensive, but yes, you definitely want to do that to stay protected.
I have a copyright filings from 10 years ago that shows as compilation volume 1 with no song list or writer info. I do not have the original forms. Is there a way to get a copy with details?
That's interesting why it wouldn't show the individual songs or writer info. Even if it was 10 years ago, I have registrations from 10 years ago. It should. So I don't know if maybe it was filed or there were problems on it. I would call the Copyright Office specifically, and I'd ask these questions. I would get clarification on that, absolutely. Like I said, it's a very important piece of paper, and making sure that the songs are itemized on it and that there wasn't a mistake made, either by the applicant or the Copyright Office, who knows. I would absolutely look into that.
How can you protect your derivative works with the new update of stem extractor plugins and DAWs, that stem splitter? they can claim your works by using these programs?
If it's your song, you're like, how can you protect? Basically, it's your works, right? Again, so I used Monster as an example, and I go, my song Monster, that's the original song. A derivative work would be like a remix or someone come and taking, some piece of it. If it's your song in any way, copyright carries. So if someone's going to use like an app, a stem extractor, anything, yeah, they would be sampling your song. So that's how you go after that.
So if a session was work for hire, now I don't understand. It sounds like an artist was paid, but I'm still needing to divide the royalties equally between all players on the song.
Usually we have two agreements. One is work for hire. I am hiring you, John, to sing, background vocals on my song. I'm paying you $500 for the session. I own everything. That's what the work for hire should say. If you and me, John's coming up with great melodies and he's contributing and all this, and we're going to share and split, and John's getting back-end royalties, then we're going to do a collaboration agreement, which spells out how it's going to work, who's getting paid, when are they getting paid. That's the difference of how you should do that. So basically start with what are you trying to achieve? And then based on that, go with one of those things. And if you need contract templates, go to topmusicattorney.com and we have them there for you.
And video explainers to explain exactly what you're doing when you're filling them out and what everything means on it. So you're totally covered there as well. Just to confirm, where should we get the registration? On ASCAP, BMI, or is it something different?
For copyright registration, very good question. People get confused by this. Copyright registrations are different than everything else I've talked about today. We talked about royalty collection to collect your money, BMI, ASCAP, Sound Exchange, your music distributor. I'm talking about getting a copyright registration from the federal government. If you're in a different country, watching this, then it's going to be the federal government, okay? With us here in the US, you want to just go to copyright.gov.
If we register our music with the Copyright Office as a collection of unpublished works before the music is released, does the status of said copyrights change after the music is released?
It does not. One of the limitations you got to keep in mind is that with a group of unpublished works, it's a little more expensive. It's not $65. If it's published, $65. If it's unpublished, $85. And if it's unpublished, the cap on it's 8 or 10. I'm being forgetful right now, but the point just being if you have an album that has 15 songs on it, you're gonna have to do 2 filings. So a little bit of like math goes into figuring it out.
What are the benefits of registering as a writer instead of a publisher when engaging with a PRO?
So registering as a publisher is a little more expensive depending on the platform that you're registering with. And I just tell people, I go, you don't need to set up a publishing company. We released a video recently on how to start your own publishing company. This was not too long ago. If you want to watch it, please go watch it. But, you can collect all of the publishing all by yourself as a writer. You do not need a publishing company. And in fact, it's a little more expensive to do that. But it makes total sense for some people based on what they're doing. So take a peek at that video. Become your own record label, which is literally if you're like, hey, I want to start a record label. Cool, I got you. Understand the entire music business. I want to set up my LLC. I want to do the marketing. It's a lot. So for example, sync licensing, for example, music marketing, it's significantly cheaper than anything you would ever get from a law firm as far as all the stuff that comes with it. And you want to make 6 figures from your music career and you want to do this for real. Like, I'm going to give you what you need.
Another question. You recommend to fill out the copyrights and the royalties collection under our record label name or under the artist name or under our name?
So if you have a record label and the intention is that the label is going to own the music, then you register it under the label. If the intention is that you're individually going to own it, same thing. So where this usually comes into play is chain of title. So something really great you guys can do at the end of your music careers, not the end, at some point in your music careers, is that for whatever portion of the music that you own, you can sell it. And this is what record labels do that you don't even know about, that they benefit like way the hell down the road, is that they go and sell your masters, which is super, like in the last 5 years, it has become so trendy. Investors who know nothing about music, they love investing and buying catalogs. We sold $9 million of catalog last year alone, and we weren't even doing it that much, to be honest.
I don't think, just real fast, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's such a thing I don't think that you talk about enough. And I don't know if it's because you have confidentiality and stuff with your clients and stuff like that, but you do a lot of catalog sales and they're not necessarily for major artists, but these artists are getting paid. Like these artists that you would have never even heard of are just getting paid like crazy for simple things like just owning their music and just and had built up that catalog and have that catalog underneath them. So I don't know. I don't think you talk about that, how lucrative that is.
Yeah, guys, and this is something that, I do, as an attorney pretty frequently. And so just if it's something you're even thinking about answering this question, you want to make sure that if you as the label are going to say we own it, we're going to sell it, like you got to make sure the paper is cleared up. If you came to me, you go, KRYSTLE, I want to sell my
Yeah.
catalog. Like have it buttoned up. I need all your contracts in place that shows who owns it, shows that you have all the rights. So whatever that's going to be, if you are the seller as an individual, as a company, make sure you start doing that due diligence properly. And then if you're like, oh no, we registered as, John, but really the label should own it, then you can do a transfer of ownership through a little contract. You're like, John transfers it to the label. So, thinking down the line, and that's what I do, is it's okay. Go file it some kind of way. Quite frankly, I don't even care. Make sure you get a registration in your name, the label's name, someone's name. So we just have the filing before infringement happens. But thinking way down the line, stuff you should consider.
Do you have any insight into whether sync companies are starting to use AI prompted songs? Well, I will say that we have seen for sure Red Lobster has already paid for and is using AI generated music in their commercials and stuff. Have we seen it? We probably have, and we don't even know that we've heard it. I would imagine. I mean, they're not going to go, the new spin-off of Walking Dead is using all AI music, unless they, probably had a stake in one of these companies and they wanted to, whatever. But I can't imagine that people are going to be shouting it from the rooftops, or maybe they will. It's more of where you're going to see it is in the effect of when you're trying to get jobs and you're finding that it's harder to get them in an already oversaturated market. It's going to be even tougher.
And yeah, I think there's companies that are absolutely taking advantage of this right now.
Is it the same process for publishing and registration for backing tracks and educational music products?
I like how your question comes with a cookie. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I was distracted by the cookie, I'm not going to lie. It's the same process for publishing and registering for backing tracks and educational music products. It's just anything creative, right? So if you're like, it's an audiobook, I'm going to give you a tiny teensy weensy different of the answer. But if you're talking about copyright, for examples, zero different. There's small changes on like what platform you go to and what you do. But if we're talking about copyright, which is a big part of this, if you're going to go and register it, you just want to make sure that you register everything. And it's just a sound recording. That's how you file it. It goes, what is it? You go, it's a sound recording. And they're not like, well, is it musical?